Hey everyone, this is another episode of the Ask Amity show. And today we want to talk about the top 5 reasons why you should review your estate plan. So, all too often, clients establish estate plans and they forget to update them. But an estate plan is useless if it's not kept up to date with the changes in your life, trust laws, or new tax regulations. So it's important that you periodically revisit your estate plan to reflect the changes and address those changes, such as addresses, assets, and family dynamics. The best way to securely plan your future is to have an up-to-date estate plan. Here are the top 5 reasons why you should review your estate plan with your attorney as soon as possible.
Yeah, so reason number one is if your family dynamics have changed. So for example, if you set up your living trust and other estate planning documents while you're still single and now you're married, you need a new plan. The reason being is laws are different for individuals who are not married versus individuals who are married, and also individuals who are divorced and widowed. And so you want to make sure that you update your plan if you get married, for example, number one. So for example, if you get married, all of your assets from now on are considered community property. And so there's some assets that are kept separate, but it gets really complicated. There's so many rules as to what's shared and what's not shared. And so if you and your husband have different wishes when it comes to who gets what, if something happens to one of you or if both of you pass away, for example, if you want to leave some assets to your parents, if you want to leave some assets to your friends, how do you make sure that they get it if you pass first? And how do you protect your children's inheritance? So in case your husband, for example, remarries after you pass, how do you make sure your kids get it and not his second wife? So those are some considerations to think about when you get married. And so if you've done an estate plan when you're single, you need to make sure you update your plan. Same goes if you're divorced. So once you're divorced, you want to make sure that your ex-husband, your ex-wife isn't going to have any rights to your bank accounts, your real estate, and other assets that you own. So usually, once you're divorced, if you had a joint trust together, that joint trust is no longer active. And so you want to make sure that you set up a new trust to protect your assets from probate court, and also make sure that in case something happens to you, it goes to your loved ones and not to your ex-husband or your ex-wife. We see it a lot where some of the financial accounts would name the ex-husband or the ex-wife as the beneficiary in case the owner passes away. So make sure you update those because even if you're divorced, if you named your husband as the pay on death beneficiary of your bank account, of your investment accounts, those assets would go to him or her. And so it's a huge mistake not updating your plan once you're divorced. And another change in the family dynamic that requires you to update your plan is if you have a new child. So you probably didn't plan for your child when you were single or when you were married without children. But once you have children, you want to make sure that you update your plan to plan for some of the emergencies. So for example, if both you and your husband pass, who's going to be the guardian? Right? Who actually raise your children? You want to make sure that the kids don't end up in foster care, that they're not split up in case both of you pass. And so you want to make sure that in your will or in your living trust, you name your kids a guardian, so then someone can step in and take care of them. And also to take care of your finances, right? Who's gonna make sure that all the assets you leave for your kids are gonna be used for their benefit? And how do you want your kids to use it? Do you want them to have everything when they're 18, or do you want to make sure that you protect their inheritance from being squandered? So those are some considerations to talk about with your estate planning attorney when planning for young children. And last but not least, when it comes to different changes in your family dynamics, if you named your parent or someone older as your trustee or executor of your will or an agent for your power of attorney or healthcare directive. Make sure those are updated. If one person doesn't want to serve anymore or they're too old to serve. Many times what we see in estate planning is that a client would name someone to take over their assets or to make their medical decisions or to make their financial decisions. But 5-10 years later, that person has passed away, they're really sick, or they just don't want to do it anymore. Or if you chose a friend from 10 years ago, that friend may no longer be a good friend of yours. So make sure you always update your plan. Take a look at it at least every few years to make sure that your fiduciaries, which are people who you trust to take care of your assets and your family, are still able to serve. And the most important position, in my opinion, is the guardian for your young children. Because if you don't update that and no one wants to be your children's guardian, they might end up in foster care and they might be split up into different families. So having a guardianship updated every few years to make sure the people that you want to raise your kids are available is so important. So that's number one. If there's any changes in your family dynamics, make sure you update your estate plan.
So in addition to changes in family and personal relationships, the other reason why you would want to review and update your estate plan is changes in your finances. So usually changes in your finances would correlate with the changes in your assets. And this may require you to ensure that your distribution are in line with your finances. So for example, if you acquired a new asset since establishing your will or trust, then it's essential to contact your estate planning attorney to be sure that the new assets are covered and properly distributed in your will or trust. Also, if your assets have grown significantly, it is a good idea to explore some tax planning, ideas with your attorney, as well as to avoid high estate taxes in the event of your passing. One of the significant issues we encounter usually with the increase in asset is that the assets are not necessarily funded into the trust. So that's something that clients always forget, like, oh, I have a trust, everything's fine. But they go on with life and continue to grow their assets, their finances, and they forget to fund it into their trust. So there's another step. You can't just have a trust and not put assets into that trust. So when you accumulate and your assets change, they need to be properly funded into the trust. And this is something that an estate planning attorney can help you ensure that it is properly done. So, it would be, the worst case scenario would be to improperly fund a trust in the event of your passing. It would take your family, years in probate and lots of money to try and transfer your property back into the trust or somehow obtain the asset from your trust. So it's really important that this process is not forgotten as you continue to increase your wealth or have changes to your estate.
Yeah, and then the next thing that we wanted to touch on as your third reason why your estate plan should be reviewed or updated is if you have a career change. Maybe you started a business, maybe you've gotten a big promotion where perhaps your asset level and your finances may have grown. So sometimes when that happens, your wishes and maybe what you had initially planned for may have changed. Number one is also, if you do start a business, we want to make sure that that business is included and funded into your estate plan as well. So you work so hard, you make your business grow. Again, we want to make sure that it's included where if and when something does happen to you, that business and all the assets that you accumulate within that business is also funded through the trust to your beneficiaries. So anytime you have maybe started a business, changed your career path, gotten a big promotion where your assets may have grown, we would recommend that you speak with us, speak with an estate planning attorney to go over your previously planned estate and just make sure that your wishes are still the same, or if not, then we would make those changes accordingly and make sure that if you did start a business, that business is part of the funded assets that's in your estate
The
plan.
fourth reason why you want to review your estate plan is your health. So maybe you've experienced some health changes in your life recently. Maybe you've gotten into an accident recently and things are a little different for you. So if you're experiencing a change in health or having an unexpected medical condition, that may cause you to reassess your wishes in your will or trust. And this happens when you realize that maybe the person you've given financial power to is not so good at helping you health-wise. And maybe you want to give the person that you've appointed for your health reasons to manage your health care, maybe you want to give them some more access to the finances in order to help you through some of your health issues. So that's really important to make sure, and your health is everything. So you want to make sure that the person who's helping you with your health also has some kind of access to your finances.
And lastly, we recommend that you take a look at your estate plan if you change certain things within your insurance policy, like life insurance, if you change the terms, coverage options, maybe perhaps beneficiaries on your insurance policy. So this is important because you have to realize that when we do your estate plan and we create your living trust, we include your beneficiaries and how you want those to be distributed in terms of what asset and what type of asset. You can customize it pretty well, or you can just do an outright distribution. But what people sometimes don't realize is if you put a individual beneficiary on your insurance policy, let's say for instance, you put Edmund as your beneficiary on your life insurance policy. However, on your estate plan, you intended that all your assets go equally to your 3 children, Jennifer, Cindy, and Edmund. But then your insurance policy, it conflicts with what you put in your estate plan, right? In your living trust. So who trumps the other? So usually it's the insurance policy beneficiary that's listed on that policy itself will trump what you had written in your living trust. So an easy way to maybe just, not have this issue is we recommend that you just keep your beneficiaries very consistent. You should just write the living trust as your beneficiary, number one, because why this is useful is number one, it avoids potential ambiguity if there is a potential for dispute where it's, not consistent. And number two is, when we write in our living trust, we usually will ask you, worst case scenario, if your primary beneficiary predeceases you or somehow is not available to inherit your estate, who do you want as your alternate beneficiary? Is it your grandchildren? Does it go back to the other surviving beneficiaries? So there usually is a backup to who's going to inherit, which will again avoid probate. But if in your insurance policy you only have a primary beneficiary and somehow this primary beneficiary does not survive you or something happens to this beneficiary prior to inheriting your life insurance policy, then this insurance policy will lapse and there will be a vacancy in the beneficiary. So then it'll go through probate. So we want to avoid all of that. So it's better to just be consistent, put your trust as your beneficiary. And then if you have any changes, all you need to change is your trust. So there will be no question as to who you intended to inherit your insurance policy and those type of benefits. Thank you so much for watching us in this episode. We'll be happy to talk to you one-on-one if you have any questions about your existing estate plan, or if you would like to create a new estate plan. We'll be very happy to provide our free consultation to you. We're available by phone, by Zoom, and by whatever electronic method is available. So we're here to help. Feel free to reach us at any time. Thank you.